Welcome to Shadow Whispers, where nightmares and truths collide, and where fear finds a voice. What if you smiled at a man who had a body in his trunk? What if you walked into a house and the killer was already inside? What if the person you were dating had blood on their hands? Tonight on Shadow Whisper, we dive into 3 terrifying true stories of people who came face to face with real-life monsters and survived. They didn't know it at the time, but they were one wrong move away from becoming the next name on a killer's list. The man seemed nice, a little quiet maybe, but when 17-year-old Linda agreed to babysit his kids, she had no idea she was stepping into the home of one of America's most notorious serial killers, until she heard the screams coming from the basement. In the summer of 1977, Linda, a high school student from Norwood Park, Chicago, answered a newspaper ad for a babysitting job. The man who hired her introduced himself as John, a local contractor with 2 young children. He was polite, well-dressed, and even offered her extra money to stay late. That night, after putting the kids to bed, Linda noticed something strange. The house smelled off, like something rotting. She assumed it was old food and ignored it. Then, around midnight, she heard a faint scratching sound from downstairs. Thinking it was the family dog, she went to check, only to find the basement door slightly open. A cold draft crept up the stairs. Then, a voice. "You shouldn't be down here." John was standing behind her, holding a rope and a knife. His friendly smile was gone. His eyes were black, empty. Linda froze. That's when she saw bloodstains on his shirt. Somehow, she managed to stammer, "The kids, they're calling for you." John hesitated, and in that split second, she ran. She burst out the front door, screaming for help. Neighbors called the police. When officers arrived, they found nothing, at first, but weeks later, John Wayne Gacy was arrested, and when investigators dug up his crawl space, they uncovered 29 bodies. Linda had been inside the house of a monster and survived by sheer luck. Gacy later confessed that he had planned to kill her that night, but fate had other plans. This is the story of how Mark came face to face with the co-ed killer and barely escaped with his life. The night was warm, the highway empty. Mark, a burly trucker with a decade of long hauls under his belt, was on his usual route through Santa Cruz when he spotted the figure on the roadside, tall, broad-shouldered, thumb outstretched. The man looked like a college kid, maybe a grad student. His wire-rimmed glasses caught the moonlight as he leaned in the passenger window. "Heading north?" the hitchhiker asked, smiling. His voice was deep, calm, almost friendly. Mark hesitated. Something about the guy's eyes, too still, too focused, made his skin prickle, but he shrugged it off. "Just another traveler." "Hop in," Mark said. The man introduced himself as Ed. At first it was normal. They talked about music, the Vietnam War, the rising gas prices. Ed was articulate, even charming. But then the question started. "You ever think about death, Mark?" Ed asked, staring straight ahead. Mark chuckled. "Not if I can help it." Ed didn't laugh. "I do. All the time." A long silence. The truck's headlights cut through the blackness, the only light for miles. Then, softer. "Ever think about what it's like to kill someone?" Mark's grip tightened on the wheel. Can't say I have." Ed turned to him slowly. "It's intimate. You ever hold someone's life in your hands, Mark? Feel their pulse stop?" Mark's mouth went dry. "This guy's not right." Ed reached into his jacket. "You got nice hands," he murmured. "Strong. I bet they'd look real good on my shelf." Mark's blood turned to ice. Then, click, a switchblade flashed in the dim cab light. In that split second, Mark knew He wasn't giving a ride to a harmless hitchhiker. He was trapped in a moving truck with a serial killer. Mark's mind raced. No cell phones in 1973. No way to call for help. Just him, the knife, and the empty road ahead. So he did the only thing he could think of. He slammed the brakes. The truck skidded violently. Ed lurched forward, the blade slicing air as Mark threw open his door and rolled onto the pavement. Mark ran, faster than he'd ever run in his life, toward the glow of a distant gas station. Behind him, he heard Ed laughing. Smart move, trucker. Police found Ed Kemper 2 hours later, wandering the highway. In his bag, a human finger bone wrapped in tissue, newspaper clippings about the co-ed murders, a list of names, women who had vanished in Santa Cruz. Kemper was arrested without a fight. Later, in his jail cell, he told detectives, "I was going to cut his head off, but he was quick. Shame, I liked him." Mark quit trucking not long after. He moved states, changed his name, but no matter how far he ran, he could never escape the memory of that night. The way Ed smiled when he said, "You got nice hands, Mark." The air in the Los Angeles bar was thick with cigarette smoke and the murmur of late-night drinkers. Neon lights from the sign outside cast flickering pink and blue shadows across the sticky tables. Lisa, a 24-year-old waitress with tired eyes from her double shift, sat alone at the counter, swirling the ice in her vodka tonic. That's when he walked in. The first thing she noticed was his presence, an energy that made the hair on her arms stand up. Tall and lean, he moved with a predator's grace, his black leather jacket creaking softly as he slid onto the stool beside her. The second thing she noticed, his sunglasses, mirrored aviators, even though it was nearly midnight. "What's a pretty thing like you doing drinking alone?" His voice was smooth, but there was something underneath, a roughness, like gravel in honey. Lisa forced a smile. "Long night." "Tell me about it," he said, flashing teeth that were just a little too sharp, a little too white. "I'm Rick." He bought her another drink, then another. His fingers brushed against hers when he handed her the glass, and she felt a jolt, not attraction, but something primal, a warning, but Lisa ignored it. He took her to an all-night diner off Sunset, the kind of place where the coffee was bitter and the waitresses had seen everything. Rick talked about music, about the rotten core of LA, about how people were just sheep waiting to be slaughtered. He laughed when he said it, but his eyes, when he finally took off those damn sunglasses, were empty. Black holes. "You're different," he murmured, tracing a finger down her wrist. "I can tell. You see the darkness too, don't you?" Lisa shivered. A week later, he left a present on her doorstep, a silver necklace with a small, dark stone. "It's a black diamond," he said when she asked. "Rare, just like you." But when she looked closer, the stone wasn't smooth. It was porous, pitted, like bone. That night, she dreamed of screaming. It was the smell that did it. Rick had left his jacket at her apartment, and when she went to hang it up, the stench hit her, copper and rot. She gagged, her fingers trembling as she searched the pockets. What she found, a switchblade, sticky with something dark, a Polaroid of a woman she didn't recognize, asleep in her bed, a newspaper clipping about the Night Stalker murders, circled in red. Her breath came in short, panicked bursts. The room spun. She ran. No phone call, no goodbye. Just the pounding of her heart as she shoved clothes into a bag, as she fled to a friend's house miles away. The police didn't believe her at first. "Ramirez, the Night Stalker? You're saying you dated him?" But when they searched his apartment, they found the trophies, the teeth, the Polaroids, and one with Lisa's name on the back. Ramirez was caught months later, but Lisa never stopped looking over her shoulder. Even after he was sentenced to death, even after the news crews left, she'd wake up in the middle of the night, certain she heard his voice whispering, "You were almost perfect. And sometimes, when the moon was full and the shadows grew long, she'd swear she saw him, just for a second, standing at the foot of her bed, smiling, sunglasses in place, even in the dark. They say hindsight is 20/20. But what if the signs were always there, and you just didn't see them? A babysitter, a hitchhiker, a lover, they all came face to face with death, and somehow lived to tell the tale. But not everyone gets that chance. And if you have a chilling experience, a brush with a killer, a haunting, a stalker in the dark, a moment where fear felt too real, share it with us. Your nightmare could be the next story we whisper in the shadows. Thank you for watching Shadow Whispers, where fear always finds a voice. Join us, subscribe now, and step into the shadows. I am Mr. Zaidi, your Detective Z, who walks in darkness and runs behind death. This is Shadow Whispers.